Marlon Vera versus Dominick Cruz takes place this weekend in the main event of UFC Fight Night San Diego. Vera versus Cruz in the UFC bantamweight division at 145 pounds. The number 8 ranked Dominick Cruz, former champion of the bantamweight division and perennial top contender, as he takes on one of the most dangerous tests of his entire career in Marlon Cheeto Vera, Ecuador's finest, as he attempts to make another run towards the top of that bantamweight division that has eluded him for such a long time. Will he pass the test against the former bantamweight champion and perhaps consensus greatest bantamweight of all time, Dominick the Dominator Cruz, good buddy of mine on commentary tonight? I think this is a great matchup. I'm really looking forward to it. I think it's going to be a good one. And I don't know if I like it for Dominick Cruz in terms of a matchup, but this is a really big fight. The rest of the card isn't too good this weekend, but this is a main event. Is certain main event fights, like, it can sort of make up for a card underneath it. And honestly, with Marlon Vera, it's guaranteed entertainment no matter what. Even if you have a guy that's elusive like Dominick Cruz and maybe doesn't put on a war every single time, even though Dominick Cruz does have an entertaining style to watch, it's not always so action-packed every single second of a fight. But a guy like Marlon Vera is going to make those types of fights extremely exciting by constantly putting on pressure, constantly trying to make the fight happen, because making the fight happen is where Marlon Vera succeeds. I just, as a fan of Dominick Cruz, worry for him in this matchup, because if you lose to Marlon Vera, it's going to be a really vicious loss. If you lose by finish, it's going to be a really vicious finish that you receive. In all honesty, Sean O'Malley got off lightly with a perennial nerve kick, because if that went into the later rounds and he would have lost in another situation, it probably would have been way more vicious. And even then, after the perennial nerve kick, Vera still put him out badly with elbows as well. But Dominick Cruz, if he loses this one, it's either going to be an absolute whooping over 5 rounds, where he takes a lot of damage but is able to tough it out and show that he's a veteran with some grit in him still, or it's going to be a real tough finish at one point and he's going to get beaten up and put away in round 3 or 4. I don't see an early finish here for Marlon Vera. I don't see an early finish or any kind of finish for Dominick Cruz, and that's the problem with Dominick Cruz, in my opinion, in this matchup. You've got so many more ways for Marlon Vera to win. He can win by decision, submission, TKO. I don't see Cruz submitting Marlon Vera. I don't see him KOing Marlon Vera in any way whatsoever, and I really don't see him getting a decision win. But that's the way that he has to win here. I think in a 3-rounder, I don't even mind the idea of Cruz maybe getting the first 2 rounds. And I think if a lot of people want to look to take on Marlon Vera in the future of his career, I think that maybe they should look for that 3-round bout with him on the main card of a pay-per-view rather than taking him on in a Fight Night main event. I will actually say this. Marlon Vera was talking about why he didn't take on Petr Yan next, even though that was a matchup that they both wanted to make. He said he didn't want to wait until October. He didn't want to wait around until October. He wanted to fight now. Why would you take on number 8 6 weeks before you could have waited for 6 weeks and taken on number 1 and guaranteed your title shot in the UFC bantamweight division? And I feel as though maybe they wanted Petr Yan on the UFC 280 card. And I think Marlon Vera, although, you know, tough guy, knows he can beat a lot of people and definitely believes in himself, does like the idea of a 5-round main event way more than a 3-rounder. And also probably believes if he does beat Petr Yan and Aldo beats Merab, then they're just going to give it to Aldo anyway, because Aldo's beaten Marlon Vera. So I feel like he's played this one strategically. He's taken a fight that he's favored to win in a favorable scenario in a 5-round main event. And he's taken it against Dominick Cruz. It's going to boost his name value. He's going to stay active. And then I think he's going to sort of sit outside the top 5 for a bit and then take his jump into the top 5 once he sees how things go down with some of those top contender matchups that are going on right now. So really looking forward to this matchup. I think it's a big one. And I do believe that Marlon Vera is going to finish Dominick Cruz in the later rounds of this one. I really do. Dominick Cruz has a really weird style to deal with, but I feel like Dominick Cruz's style works best against like orthodox opponents like Casey Kenny. And even then he sort of edged past the Casey Kenny matchup in very close fashion. And then he had a matchup with Pedro Munoz, who's also very orthodox in what he does in terms of his boxing, and also just throws a couple of leg kicks here and there as well. You saw Cejudo give Cruz a little bit of problems because he had a bit more of like a karate stance in their matchup in order to land some of those leg kicks, but that was Cruz stepping in after so much time off. He clearly wasn't. If you look at the shape Cruz was in against Munoz and even against, what's his name, Casey Kenny, he looked so much more flabby against Henry Cejudo and so much more like body fat heavy in that matchup. Although he might have been like ready for 5 rounds cardio wise, he definitely wasn't in peak condition for that matchup whatsoever. But either way, I just feel as though there's people with unorthodox styles that are going to give Cruz a lot of problems. And I think Marlon Vera, although he does things orthodox, he's very defensively aware, and I don't think he gets enough credit for that, because I was one of the people saying, how does he have no marks on his face after that Rob Font fight? He took so many punches. But if you watch him in the fight, he's constantly got his chin tucked. He's constantly got his guard up. And he's always trying to catch shots on the forehead and the top of the head and stuff like that, and break knuckles with his head. And he's never really getting caught and his head spinning around all over the place. O'Malley caught him a couple of times like that. Aldo caught him a couple of times like that. And they have that sting in their shots to where he's going to sort of like respect him a bit more and not really put on that massive relentless pace, because even though he beat O'Malley, he wasn't like marching him down and destroying him in that matchup before the perennial nerve kick, and even after the perennial nerve kick, because they had that sting in their shots that sort of kept him like, okay, these guys hit a bit harder than the Rob Fonts of the division. These guys hit a little bit harder than the so-and-sos of the division that I can just keep walking down. Like, even Edgar, he was still like, he would take a couple big shots and then just continue walking down Edgar with no fear whatsoever. And I feel like that's a problem. Even against Aldo, he took a couple of big shots and he played it way more patiently. I feel as though Cruz doesn't have the power to get respect. He does better against orthodox opponents, and Marlon Vera, although doing some things in a very orthodox fashion, he will throw it off out of nowhere, and I think that's where I like his finishing potential here, to hurt Cruz with some kind of crazy shot. Like, Marlon Vera will go in there, teep to the body, jab 2, jab, jab 2, leg kick, jab, teep to the body, 1-2, body kick, 1-2, wheel kick. You know what I mean? That's what Marlon Vera does. And I think with a style like Dominick Cruz, where he builds patterns off of what you're doing, to have that sort of like 1 in every 20 strike weirdness, it's going to benefit you against him, because he's going to build these sort of patterns, and then you're going to shatter the pattern with some weird technique. Like against Rob Font, he starts throwing normal basic shots, combos, trying to rip to the body, trying to land to the head. Then he throws a kick, left hook, right afterwards. Real weird angle, real weird timing. It catches Rob Font. He starts beating him up on the ground. Then all of a sudden, they go in there again. And then, oh, sweet chin music on Rob Font. He throws a jumping side kick to the face on Rob Font that lands very well and hurts him there as well. Like, it's just front kick to the face on Rob Font lands at one point as well. Like, he just throws these weird techniques in there that you don't see coming. And that's how it worked against Frankie Edgar. Although he might have been losing that Frankie Edgar matchup, he could have been getting round 2, but you can give round 2 to Frankie Edgar based on some of the takedowns that he's got. Round 1 was Frankie Edgar's round. This is why I wouldn't mind it in a 3-rounder, but in a 5, I don't like it at all for Dominick Cruz. He's just so old in the game. He's had so many injuries. If you had to put money on some guy in this fight having an injury, you'd all put your money on it being Dominick Cruz. Let's be real. Like, hey, someone in the fight between Dominick Cruz and Marlon Vera this weekend has a big injury. These little things that you got to take into consideration when you're picking a fight and trusting a prediction that's on the line. Hey, someone this weekend in the main event's injured. Who is it? No one's going to logically, gun to my head, Marlon Vera. Like, no, it's probably going to be Dominick Cruz. If there's anyone going to be carrying some kind of injury into this matchup, I think Marlon Vera's got a break 'em apart style where he hurts the legs, he hurts the body, he hurts the face, he breaks the nose, he busts the lip of the opponent, he hurts their eye, the eye's swollen up. And I feel like if Cruz starts picking up some of these injuries and some of these sort of like damages in the middle of the fight, I think it's going to eventually start slowing him down. And Vera does not slow down. He's going to start picking up the pace as the fight goes on, being a little bit easier to the target for him as well. He's going to start finding the target a little bit easier. And I think he's going to start landing some of those big shots on Dominick Cruz in round 4, round 3, and then finish him in the end of round 4 or round 5 maybe. I think he's going to make a point to finish Dominick Cruz here. I think he wants to finish Dominick Cruz and make a statement, and then start looking at sort of the top contenders to get himself that title shot. Maybe he'll look for the winner of Petr Yan versus Sean O'Malley, because if O'Malley wins, you can argue he hasn't earned a title shot because it's the only big win that he's got in the rankings technically. And if Petr Yan wins, you can argue, hey, you know, you've just beat O'Malley. I beat O'Malley quicker than you did. Let's say if Yan doesn't get it done in the first round or something like that. O'Malley's ranked number 13. You're going to get a title shot off of him. So then he can start looking for those matchups and look for it at a time where he can get it in the main event of a fight night, which will benefit him even more. So really looking forward to this matchup, but I think it's going to be Dominick Cruz winning round 1, looking good. Dominick Cruz winning round 2, mixes in some takedowns. Vera starts landing good shots. A close competitive round 2 that Dominick Cruz gets the better of. Round 3, very competitive again. It starts to get very scrappy. Vera and Cruz are swinging back and forth in the pocket. Cruz is getting hit by more and more shots. Some leg kicks are starting to land from Marlon Vera quite well. Some body kicks are starting to land from him as well. Dominick Cruz is still landing well, still moving well, but you can see there's a little bit more of a limp to his step. He's got a bit of a swollen eye on one side. He's got a cut over one of his eyebrows. Stuff like that's going to start picking up on Dominick Cruz's face. And then round 4, I think Vera's going to start doing good. Cruz will be okay in the first minute or so. Vera will start taking over. That limp will start to get a little bit more obvious. The shots will start accumulating on the face again. One of my hairs on the side of my head has curled into my ear canal, and that is really tickling me. So that must be removed. But either way, shots start picking up, damage starts picking up, and then out of nowhere, on the way out of an exchange, Dominick Cruz tries to 1-2 and then dip out the other way, and then all of a sudden Marlon Vera comes up with a head kick. He goes right into it, stumbles him a little bit, hurts him badly. Marlon Vera starts beating him up. Dominick Cruz gets back up, tries to shake it off, tries to move around. Vera's still chopping at the legs, going to the body. Hurts Dominick Cruz again with a big punch. Down goes Cruz. He shoots a takedown. Vera's punching his head on the side of the ear area over and over and over again. Cruz is trying to drive through on a single leg or double leg to stay in the fight. Vera sprawls it. Darce chokes it up, latches it in. Dominick Cruz goes out cold in a Darce choke is how I see this fight going. But big matchup in the bantamweight division. Really looking forward to it. As I said, the winner of this one is looking at the winner of Yan versus O'Malley, because sign me up for Yan versus Cruz. Sign me up for Marlon Vera versus Petr Yan. Sign me up for Sean O'Malley versus Marlon Vera too. Sign me up for Sean O'Malley versus Dominick Cruz if Dominick Cruz can get this one done. But 5 rounders, Marlon Vera is going to give anyone a problem in that division. Real big problems in that division, so we'll see how it goes. I'd like to see Dominick Cruz try and grapple a bit. Don't think it's going to work out for him, but I'd like to see someone try and take down Marlon Vera like Frankie Edgar did, because it seemed to work for him, and, he's not as short as Frankie Edgar, so that front kick's not going to be as much of an option to catch him with, so we'll see how Cruz does. I hope he wins, because I don't want to see him get beaten up. That's the main reason I want him to win. I want Vera to win for the good of the bantamweight division. I just know if Vera wins, it's because Cruz got really viciously beaten, and I don't want that to happen. So, I don't know. We'll see how it goes. Like and subscribe. Thank you for watching. I'm going round 4. Darce choke from Marlon Vera after dropping Cruz twice. Toodle pip. I'll see you later. Goodbye.